I'm joined now by Israel's ambassador to the UK, Tzipi Hotovely. Good morning. We last spoke on October the 8th, within 24 hours of the Hamas attack. Some people had hoped for an extension of truce. But let's just deal with some facts for a moment. That's obviously failed. Do you know how many hostages remain in Gaza?
First of all, it's Hamas that failed this pause. And the reason is he's still holding 15 women, 2 children. One of them is a 10-month baby, Kfir Bivas. I think he became the most famous baby all around the world with his red hair. And they're in charge of bringing back all the other hostages. We have over 100 hostages still in the hands of Hamas. And they're the one who start firing on Israeli cities and Israeli towns on Friday. And we need to make sure that Hamas understands that we mean serious when we say any games will be, fighted back by Israel. And we're back fighting because it seems like Hamas was not serious when he said, we'll release the women and children.
So how do you, if I may ask this then, how do you expect to get those hostages back? Because they're saying you can't have any negotiations over hostages while you're still raining missiles down on us. You're saying that we can't talk to these people. Just speak of it, specifically thinking about the hostages. There are people in Israel who would say you're abandoning them.
Absolutely not. Actually, what we realized this week, when we saw the first hostages coming back home, when we saw their faces, they're sharing their stories, and unfortunately, Hamas didn't do that from goodwill. They're not a humanitarian organization, as you know. They're a terror organization. They brutally tortured the people that they kept hostage. This is a war crime. We need to make sure everyone understands Hamas committed a war crime by taking those innocent people at the 7th of October as hostages. And when they're coming back, what we realized is the only thing that made Hamas get into this negotiation, joined with the Qataris and the Americans, was the fact that Israel was with its troops on the ground in Gaza. Only this invasion that Israel brought the Hamas to release our hostages. So it's actually the other way around. When we don't put military pressure on Hamas, we get nothing. When we put military pressure on Hamas, Hamas starts to feel the pressure, and then the negotiation started.
But military pressure thus far, you don't have to accept Hamas's numbers on this, but military pressure, as you put it, has resulted in the deaths of, 10,000 more people in Gaza. And I'm wondering, if I come back to your aim to get the hostages back, how what Israel is doing now is going to contribute to that. If you're saying that actually the only way to make progress is to do what you're doing now, isn't the possible outcome of this that there will be tens of thousands of deaths in Gaza and you don't get the hostages back either?
So, Trevor, we need to go back to the 7th of October to understand what exactly Israel is doing. Israel is making sure that Hamas won't exist in the Gaza Strip. The war had 2 aims. One is to make sure that all Hamas capabilities are dismantled, and the second is to bring our hostages back.
And my point is that some of the hostages' families are saying that actually you're putting that objective, destruction of Hamas, ahead of bringing them home.
No, because we think those aims are not in contradiction. But basically, when you put the military pressure on Hamas, you make a progress both on destroying Hamas capabilities. Now, I want to speak something you made also, like many other journalists. You're just starting to understand the amount of sexual violence that Hamas committed against innocent women. I must raise that because It took over 50 days to the UN Women Organization to condemn something that is so clear. We just saw in The Guardian today, in the Sunday Times, we saw clear testimonies on women that are being raped, and some of the testimonies are speaking about women being raped and then being murdered brutally. So one of the articles said, rape is rape. So why and how come it took 50 days to the UN Women Organization to deal with that? So Hamas, it was part of its plan to use this sexual violence against women. And we want to make sure the world understand what we're dealing with and what we're facing with. Hamas brutally murdered and raped innocent women. And this type of mentality, to terrorize innocent people, to terrorize the entire Israel, this is something that was part of his psychological warfare. We're not going to let this type of crimes to be under the radar. And speaking about crimes, I heard a testimony from one of our best doctors in Israel, Professor Itai Pesach. When the first hostages came, he received to look after the children and the women. And 12 children, he said, when I heard their testimonies about what they've been going through under the hands of Hamas, he said the whole country won't be sleeping at night when we listen to these young children and what they've been through. We're talking about starvation. We're talking about children didn't see daylight. We're talking about physical torturing. And we are talking about children that are whispering today because Hamas stole their voice. They're not allowed to speak.
Okay.
This is as bad as it was. And I'm saying to the world, look at the people we're dealing with, the people that brutally murdered over 1,000 Jews. We cannot live next to them. So we need to make sure that Hamas is defeated. There is no other way to carry on in life in the Middle East without Hamas being defeated.
I wanted you to lay that out as you wished. I don't think anybody has any doubt about pain of Israeli people and their relatives here and elsewhere. But the question is, how do you stop that happening again? Now, you've dropped leaflets instructing people in Gaza to retreat to safe areas. One of the things that we've seen, and we're not the only station that's reported this, is that people who have gone to safe areas, and they show the Israeli instructions, you've numbered the blocks and all, they've gone to safe areas, and then they show you that those blocks have been destroyed. How can you be sure that, for example, people in places like Khan Yunis aren't turning into your enemies again and perpetuating exactly the kind of thing you've just been talking about?
Well, Trevor, that's a very deep question about how we think about peace in the future. So one thing being proven at the 7th of October, that Hamas regime is bad both to Israelis and to Palestinians. What Hamas gave to the Palestinian people, poverty and torturing the people, abusing them, using them as human shields. So I'm answering you. But Israel made sure there is a place for the people of Gaza to have their shelters. There is a place in Gaza called the Muassi. The Muassi is the place where they all can have shelters. Together with international organizations, we created shelters for the Palestinian people. So you cannot say Israel is not facilitating that. Together with humanitarian aid.
But let's deal with the fact as they experience it on the ground, and we've seen them. Our people have reported them. They've gone to the places they thought were safe, that Israel, the IDF told them were safe, and they were not safe. Let me put it to you again. Isn't the problem, and I'm not at all saying it's easy, isn't the problem for Israel that you need to think again about the consequences of the action? And you might want to carry on with it, but we need to be honest, don't we, that there are going to be more casualties here.
So I will give you my answer. The only reason there are civilian casualties in this war is because Hamas is using them as human shields. When you see schools of UNRWA being used with rockets,
the United Nations Relief Agency,
and when you see those mosques being used as a place that they launch rockets on Israel. Just yesterday, there was a massive attack on Tel Aviv, on center of Israel. That means that basically they don't care about their own people, Hamas.
All right.
While Israel does care about civilian casualties.
You keep bringing me back to Hamas. I want to talk about Israel.
Because they're the cause of everything.
Let me bring it to you in this way. It's not your enemies now who are asking whether Israel is pursuing the right tactic. The American Vice President yesterday said, in terms, enough people have died in Gaza. The Defense Secretary of America said the same thing. Aren't you risking international support for Israel and ending up isolating your own country by your actions?
Absolutely not, because first of all, US support is very strong, and we can see that we share the same aims. I mean, if the Americans would have said, wait a second, destroying Hamas is not the right thing to do, it's not what they're saying. They're saying, you need to destroy Hamas. The UK government is saying,
not in this
you need
way,
to
perhaps.
destroy Hamas. We're very much open-minded to see if someone can find a solution that is like a magic solution. You know, one of the ministers in the cabinet said, if you can give us a magic spell, maybe a Harry Potter stick, to make those tunnels, underneath tunnels, to disappear, we'll be very grateful. But this is not the case. We know, we speak on reality on the ground. It took the Americans 9 months in Mosul to dismantle ISIS capabilities when there was no underground tunnel city. This is much more complicated than Mosul. This is why I need to make sure that everyone understands. In order to have a better future in the Middle East, in order to have peace in the future, we must make sure Hamas is destroyed. And this is where the Americans and UK government and other international leaders share our goals. So I really believe it will be for the better for both Israelis and Palestinians.
Ambassador, unfortunately, I think we'll be talking about this for many moons to come. Thank you for taking your time
Always
this morning.
happy to come here. Thank you.
Thank you.